Okay, so we're going to go ahead into our next section, and we're going to talk about, basically the Property Tax Assessment Board, and I think it was 2014. I can't remember. 2014 was the hearings that I was thrown out of, basically, public hearings and stuff like that. So, I mean, we're going to try to talk about and encompass all the things involved with that. Basically, let me go ahead and give you some background real quick. The Property Tax Assessment Board is where you can appeal your taxes, property taxes, if they're way too high or inaccurate. Public hearings, and they are public hearings, which means that the public has a right to attend and to record. There is a precaution, a safety precaution, to allow the public. My notes are scrambled. Sorry about that. The reason the hearings are public is that it is a safety measure. You need to be able to see what's happening, so it's not done in the dark and what have you. So that's why the property taxes are online also, so that anybody can, with an internet connection, can go look at the property taxes and see if his neighbor's paying $5 where you're paying $10,000 in property tax. So that's the safety measure. As long as it's public, then the public can kind of access it and self-regulate. There have been a lot of complaints about the corruption on this particular board, the Washington County Property Tax Assessment Board, over the years. I have video clips from 2011. From government meetings where formal complaints have been made and nothing has been done. In fact, it's actually gotten worse. In 2014, I stumbled onto one of the hearings and stayed to record for it was 3 days worth of hearings. But I was sent out of the room multiple times and told not to record these meetings, which was against the law. Unless they had there is a legal way to send the public out of the room if there is, proprietary information. But that has to be done ahead of time. There has to be papers and all of that kind of stuff. And so none of that was there. They just didn't want me in the room recording stuff. Okay. So that's what happened in 2014, in August, or July, or what have you. Now, we went ahead and filed with the public access counselor, and if he almost put it in capital letters, all of it. Don't do that. You've broken the law several times. But go ahead and let's see. Okay, so we thought, well, they've been smacked on the nose. They'll maybe stop, or I do get my fill of this. I don't enjoy this at all. But this last year, when the Regional
Development Authority, RDA,
they tried to go ahead and have like a little ghost government going on here, which would basically suck millions of dollars out of our community to somewhere else, Jefferson County, southern Indiana.
Clark County, yes, it was. There was going to be $84 million from the state divided between 2 regional development authorities. So potentially it would have been $42 million. And they were saying, we can't turn down this free money. It would have created an unelected board of appointed people that would serve for 8 years. You couldn't get rid of them for 8 years, and they would have control of the money and how it was spent. And they were saying, well, this is free money. How can you turn down free money? Well, it was everything they were talking about that was an actual project was going to be in Clark County. They had some little studies which might lead to something to sort of tempt the other counties into it, like Washington County. But recently it's come out that after they awarded this, they said that they were expecting the local counties to spend 2 for 1. So in other words, to get the $42 million, they were expecting the local people to cough up $84 million. So This was like, we got $1 in free money for every $2 you spend.
Right.
So this was not free money at all, and it would have been going toward Clark County, and it would have had an unelected board that can direct these projects, which you can't replace for 8 years. So Porter County, I think up in northern Indiana, got stuck in one of these things, and they tried to get out because they had taxes going into this thing, and they were saying, we're not getting a return. We want this money back. We want out of this. And they sued in court to get out of the RDA. And the court said, you can't get out. And the other thing they said, oh, don't worry, there's going to be this is not just a one-shot thing of the $42 million. There will be more money in the future. This is not just, well, in this spring we've seen in the legislature is balking at spending, giving more money back to these things. So that promise that, oh, this will keep going, this will be money coming every year, was not going to be true. It was going to be a one-time thing to get us on the hook for more than 8 years of spending and tax increases. But I want to congratulate our local county council, considered it and rejected it. They saw some of these same problems.
Well, I mean, you can go ahead and congratulate them, but the Regional Libertarian Party actually was very gung-ho about being at the meeting and stopping this because we know it for what it was. And I hadn't been to the meetings for a very long time. And just because I can't, it just makes me angry. And I needed a break. But I was asked by Martina to go ahead and show up, and I said, well, okay. So I bring in my equipment, and I'm setting up my equipment, and we've said this before. A public official came back and assaulted me. He wouldn't leave me alone. He wouldn't walk away. He almost hit me. If it hadn't been for David Norton, he almost hit me. And that's the thing. It's not that how do I put this? So that happened. They had video of it. They took it offline. I don't know if they're just bad editors, but they scooped it out. So, I mean, that they didn't, it happened. They scooped it out, and they let everyone know that they did that. It's just disgusting to me. But anyway, if you going on to
and this ties into what you're saying about the Property Tax Assessment Board,
right,
is by yelling at you, getting close to you and yelling at you, saying, I'm going to call the cops on you.
And then calling the cops.
And actually calling the cops.
And having them show up.
The very sensible cop realized that there's no crime in videotaping a public meeting. So nothing happened. But the intent was to intimidate, to say, if you record what's going on at this public meeting, you could end up in jail. This is a threat of intimidation. This is not how the government is supposed to work. Government is supposed to, this is part of democracy. This is civics. This is what you learn in the 8th grade and when you're a senior in high school. For democracy to work, government has to be open. We see on C-SPAN, the House of Representatives and Senate, they have open hearings. It's televised. It's recorded. We have freedom of information. Hillary Clinton is in trouble because she kept emails that were supposed to be on a government server. So if there's a subpoena or a public request for Freedom of Information Act, that they would be on the server and they can search and find the relevant records. Well, that's why she had a private server in her home. She didn't want her email to be responsive to Freedom of Information requests. So when a judge says, give us all the emails on this topic, she wanted her servers off the system, so when a judge has a court order, that her stuff would get missed. It was an intent to break the law by not having open government. And there are certain things that are supposed to be open and not classified, and some things classified. And when the government overclassifies or has executive sessions or secret meetings, secret hearings, this is a problem because anything can happen in the dark. And when things are in the open, like just writing a letter to the editor or having the cameras on. We see this with the police. If police are wearing body cameras, there are 80% less complaints against the police, and there are much less violence which is coming from the police. That everybody gets more careful, and it protects the police. It protects the people they're arresting. Openness is what we want from government. The more open, the more transparent, the more we know what's going on, the more democracy we got.
So that incident, not only it made me angry, and because it got worse. They've always threatened me and been aggressive. I want to go ahead and play a clip from the 2012 Campbellsburg forum. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. And here we go. And this is the same individual that assaulted me.
It's not about the stopwatch tonight. It's about discussion of the issue.
What encouraged you to run for county office? Okay. Well, one of the reasons I was encouraged to run for county office is a lot of my fellow friends and citizens in this community that I've lived with all my life in this county come to me and ask me to run. They felt like that I should get. Rhonda didn't. She's shaking her head no. Of course, no. She has her vendetta anyway, but that's fine. She has her own thoughts and her own about things and how they should be handled. But with honesty and being transparent, these are things that have to be practiced and done. And being lawfully and truly above the law is not the way to go. And there's some people that feel like they can do that. So, if you're going to be in public office, you have to abide by the law. And if you don't abide by the law, I'll assure you, that you'll find out that the law will take care of you with prosecution.
Not sure where that was going, but Mr. McIntyre.
Okay, so that was just a campaign, promised by him to not break the law, but of course that's not been the case. This clip will be back on Indiana Proud, as well as a couple others and stuff like that. So this has been chronic behavior by our local officials, and it's really inappropriate. And what it means to you is that it's not just happening to me. It's not just happening to me. And going back to the Property Tax Assessment Board, Max, tell them what this means. You're the best at this.
Oh, well, basically when the state required them to send a response when we made the complaint, and their lawyer's response was basically, I know the state law, I just choose not to follow it. They feel that you need to be more laid back. Well, it's not this single incident that's the problem. It's the idea that they come out and said that there've not been legal hearings held in the county for hard telling how long. And yet the state still allows the county to seize properties and sell it at tax sales, even though, according to the law, they have to, in order before they can seize it, they have to have a legal hearing, and then the state has the option to appeal to the state, and then 1, 2, 3 things have to happen to get there. Well, when you're denied the first step in the process, and your property still gets seized and sold at tax sale, has justice really been served? And the state constitution says they can't take your property without the compensation. But they're saying, well, we can do it if we go through the legal steps, but they didn't go through the legal steps. They weren't legal hearings to start with, so when the state turns a blind eye and looks the other way while you're not being denied your first step, then the other steps really don't matter. So the problem is, is the county really trying to open, and the state trying to open herself up for lawsuits for people that do feel that their properties had been taken unlawfully, and the county actually admitting that all the legal steps had not been followed. So there you go with that one.
Well, that even means, if you thought your taxes were too high and knew that you couldn't have a legal hearing. It really opens the door, especially all the way back to 2011, when, formal complaints have been made. And you can't, it just really opens the county up for legitimate class action. So if your taxes were quadrupled like a few people this last couple years, I mean, you have a right. You didn't have access to a legal hearing, and a lot of that, I mean, that has to do, you take somebody's home, you take all their wealth. If you don't have someplace to live, I mean, that just really knocks them to the bottom. And when you go ahead and do that, I mean, it has to be, once again, that just breaks my heart. Property in a home that people have worked for years, just taken away because they have no right to a legal hearing in Washington County.
Well, then the states changed the laws to say you don't have a right to appeal to the state unless you go through the county's process. But even when the state of Indiana already knows the county's process is not legal, they're still saying, well, if you don't go through this illegal process, then you can't come do a legal process, therefore you lose your right to appeal for your house anyway. So it's kind of a catch-22. Where do you go? And the state's culpable in this as well by saying that you have to go through this process that they already know wasn't legal. And the Attorney General's office is okay with the idea that the county knows state law, they just choose not to follow it, as being a reasonable explanation to why they did what they did. And there's not been any follow-up or recourse to say, okay, now this is what we're going to do to fix it in the future. Nothing's been said about that.
Well, and it's not that we haven't been doing something, too. I haven't, shaken the trees and gotten, intense with other people, in the government or what have you, but I have looked at a lawyer, and a good lawyer costs $20,000 up front, and this is something that shouldn't be, this is something that shouldn't be a problem. This should be looked into, not only our local officials, if, they weren't, behind this kind of activity, and, or, the state or even the federal government. I read about a town in Texas where the corruption was so bad that all they had left was a councilman that wasn't under indictment. The mayor, it was like a town of 4,000 people, and, close to what Salem is. And they were close to the border, and they were taking bribes, to ferry illegals across the country line, and, and it just, and they'd been smacked over and over again. Don't do that. Stop it. And finally, they just, took them away in handcuffs because they just couldn't keep themselves. Well, that's another addiction, isn't it? Just couldn't help themselves, breaking the law may be a thing, and abusing the community may be an addiction. If we could maybe have a
treatment center for
center, we could be the first in the nation. We'd have enough candidates for it. I tell you what. But you see it. That's the thing too. You see it with the Trump candidacy. I know that seems like it comes out of left field, but the Republican Party is working really hard to demolish Trump now. I think they're just upset because he used to be what they considered food. He was a big donor, and now they're trying to work the laws, and the caucus is, the rules have changed, and guys, come on now.
Manipulate. Even if he gets 70% of the vote, he's still not going to be elected.
Right.
They're not going to allow him to be their candidate because he's just not what they're looking for anymore.
Right.
Well, I'm not at all crazy about Trump, but I think the people that are voting for Trump, I think you even hear when some of these people are interviewed, they say, well, I'm not sure that I think he believes what he's saying, or that he's sincere, or that he will do these, but they're saying, I don't like the system we have. We've been lied to, and these people are voting for him because they want somebody to tear down the system that has been lying to them. People have campaigned saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Then they get in the office, and then they say, well, we can't really do that. And people are, both parties, the Sanders people, are fed up with a party that claims to be for the poor people, but the leadership of the party is taking all their donations from Wall Street and bailed out the Wall Street banks. And the Sanders people and the Trump people, there's a lot of fed up people are saying that government works for the rich people or somebody else, but it's not working for us. So I think there's a lot of hope in these movements, even though I don't agree with more than half of what Sanders says and a lot of things Trump is saying. But those people are saying, we want honest government. We want politicians to tell us the truth. We want politicians that are authentic. And I do think Trump is authentic. I think he has some of his solutions wrong. But the people are wanting a government that works for the little guy and not just the rich people and not just Wall Street. And they want open government. And people are tired of surveillance and sending their troops overseas for decades and decades for wars that aren't accomplishing anything, and they're wanting something different. And that's what we want here in Washington County. We want to try some different things, some things that work better than what we've been doing. More open, more transparent government. We want politicians whose first instinct is not to ask their lawyer, how can we stop the public from attending this meeting? How can we make this? We want politicians whose first instinct is to, let's have everything be open. Let's have every meeting be open. And the first instinct to be say, how can we make sure that people can record? And be aggressive towards openness until the lawyer says, you can't do this one in public because of this reason. And what we often have is the reverse. Their first instinct is can we find some way to make this closed or secret or not public? And we just need, and you can be a conservative and be for open government. You can be a liberal and be for open government. You can be a libertarian and be for open government. So even if you don't want to go the libertarian way, you should be asking your public officials, hey, why isn't your first instinct to allow cameras and have open meetings? It's not going to hurt, conservatives or anybody to have more open government. Nobody except the cronies, the people that are getting special favors, the things that are kind of embarrassing, and that's why they want the meeting closed.
Well, that's a good question for everybody that's in office right now and seeking that office or a higher office. Why do you not believe the public has a right to attend a public meeting? Because apparently that's your position, or you would be standing up and saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. But there's not a single one who's in office right now who's willing to do that. And, we did send an email to our state representative and our state senator and say, hey, they tried to kick us out of this public meeting, or Rhonda did, and we need your help, and get no response from them. And we got no response from the Attorney General, who's running for higher office as well. They just all looked out of the way. They don't believe in your right to attend a public meeting, and they don't believe in your equal protection under the law rights. Yet they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. Yeah, they're for gun rights and they're for all other rights, except for when it comes time to put the rubber to the road and prove that you're going to stand up for the right for the public to attend a public meeting.
Yeah.
And that's one of the basic, simple things that's went on. And here we've already went through the channels and tried to complain, and even got the state police to assign a detective to investigate this assault charge with trying to unlawfully throw the public out of a public meeting. And basically the detective just decided he didn't want nothing to do with it, so he didn't even talk to an eyewitness. The state of Indiana's official position apparently is that the public has no right to attend a public meeting. And if that's not the case, then why aren't some the supervisor saying, why didn't you follow up on this? Why don't we assign somebody else who will follow up on this? That's maybe reaching a bit far, but when the public no longer has a right to attend a public meeting and nobody you've elected is willing to stand up and say, that's wrong, we have a problem, people. And we need to be looking at this real strongly and asking questions before we hand them a vote again.
Well, and I'm going to bring in the local. The prosecutor told me that he wasn't going to look into it, that he wasn't going to hold this individual to the feet to the fire. And basically that's why the state police officer didn't investigate. I've got an email on that. That's the whole reason. It's a rinky-dink charge. assault is a rinky-dink charge, and it might go ahead and curb this kind of behavior. But this behavior is supported and encouraged in our county. Because if you're afraid that you're going to lose your job or be pulled over or be abused by people who are using the community's power to hurt you, you're not going to speak up. And that makes it easier on them to do what they want to do. And the only reason I can really stand up, because I have no doubt that the next time this individual's going to hit me. I know this. This is the kind of behavior, he's barreling into it, it's escalated, and it'll continue. And I'm not looking forward to getting hit, but I will not shut up. I don't like it. It's not going to happen. Stop breaking the law. It's pretty simple. But anyway, so...
It's tough when the rest of the public look and see, you're up front and they're doing this stuff to you and nobody's doing anything to protect them. Somebody's got a job local... don't want to stir no waves. They don't want to come to these public meetings just so they can be singled out or intimidated or have their boss called and told that they're going to ruin their business if they don't get rid of this individual or whatever for being a troublemaker. It's waiting on the public to just passively give up their rights. Whether they want to attend a meeting or not, they still have the right to do so. And for the elected officials and for the powers that be to say, well, no, not really. Right. They need to have to come out and justify that, especially when another election cycle is coming through, and say, how do you really believe? And not just what I want to hear. While you're in power today, what bills are you going to pass through the state House and Senate? What are you going to come forward and say, you know what, we're going to make this a felony for any individual who holds an elected office to try to throw somebody out of a public meeting?
Right. So, basically that's what it is. That you can tell by the individual who during the political forum said, everyone that breaks the law should be prosecuted. Well, this individual has broken the law multiple times. But we're coming to the end of our show. And, now that we're all hyper, we're going to go, indulge in our own, addictive behavior and eat a bunch of food and talk and stuff like that. So, David, could you say the disclaimer again? That would be awesome.
Yes, the views and opinions expressed on this show are our own, and they are not the views and opinions of WSLM Radio or its employees or management.
All right, and this will be posted online. I hope I got the recording right. And this is the Liberty Hour with Rhonda Greene, David Norton, and Max Greene. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Oh,
and...
oh, well, 2 minutes. Okay.
We'll
hit home and tap our feet. But no,
we
that's
got two
awesome.
more minutes. Then
2 more minutes. Okay.
Well, I'll say this thing of the government policing itself is a big problem. This is at every stage. People are wondering if the FBI indicts Hillary Clinton, will the Justice Department act politically and not indict and prosecute? And this happens every day. We see this with police shooting unarmed people in various places. We've seen these things on the news where police are not indicted when they choked a person to death for selling cigarettes on the street, or shooting a kid with a toy gun. And some of these times you don't know that the police may have been acting in good faith, but we've seen lots and lots of cases, and in every case,
statistically, like 80% of the shootings involve an officer who shot somebody before, whether they killed them or not. And that's a pretty high statistic. I mean, maybe they need to look at the laws and change that, once you're involved in shooting another human being, maybe you need to do death service the rest of your time instead of getting more aggressive.
Yes, a lot of these are cases where people had violence in the past against people and lots of complaints, and nothing was done, and then they went over the line. They, drew a gun on unarmed people and shot them for some reason.
Well, and it's not good for the community. It's not good for the police officers either, because they are human beings, and it can be a lack of training.
Yeah.
Okay, so have we done it? 2 minutes? Almost? Okay, so It's still our opinion and not the opinion of WSLM or this radio station. And this is the Liberty Hour with, once again, Rhonda Greene, David Norton, and Max Greene.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
We
right.
had to discuss.